Boys, we have one of the most anticipated moments in the Development Diary series for Europa Universalis 5. We've got the complete revamp of the Anatolian Peninsula. We're talking about new nations that have been added, revamp of the cultural map mode, the religious map mode, and so on. It's a big one. It's pretty juicy, so stick around. This has started a little bit of a controversy, but I like the fact that this controversy has been very civil over on the forums. And whether you believe there should be more of this or more of that, I think people have been demonstrating what us map gamers all have in common, which is love for maps. Really, that's pretty much it. And we don't really know what color the grass is, but that's a story for another time. Okay, now Pavia has given us quite a few new maps. The first one here is the countries map, so that is the political map mode. This is two maps. This one, the first one is with the wasteland separate, and the second one, the wastelands have been integrated, so you get the color of the nation that has the highest percentage of that particular wasteland or impassable terrain, whatever you want to call it. I guess we're gonna work with the second map here, since I like to see this better. I like the wastelands one too, but it's easier for me to figure out which nation is which when you have massive names on the map rather than have little names, because there's too much wasteland and it's preventing you from actually seeing the name fully. One thing that likely is the most obvious is the fact that the colors have been changed also. We've got some new colors, some different variations of the older colors as well. And starting from the western parts of the Anatolian Peninsula, we've got, of course, the Ottomans, soon to be the Ottoman Empire, right? We have the city of Nicomedia already having been captured by the Ottomans, and the rest of the peninsula here belonging to the Byzantines for the time being. Now, I do suspect that in 1337, the Ottomans and the Byzantines are going to start at war, which should be the case. And from that war, the Ottomans likely will be taking the rest of the peninsula alongside some other little holdouts that the Byzantines probably have. Maybe even get their foothold into the Balkans from that initial war if it's a player, right? Who's to say? Now, next to the Ottomans, we have the Karasids. I'm not going to go too much into the history of things because I've already discussed the history of these things in the previous Anatolian map dev diary, and I'm just going to go over some of the newer stuff, explain what's different, and so on. Now, aside from the Karasids, which are basically food for the Ottomans, we have the Germianids, Surahanids, Sahibids. We have the famous city of Philadelphia, after which the American city was named. The last holdout, by the way, this is the last holdout of the Byzantines in Anatolia. It fell last after all the other coastline holdings had been captured. This inland holding managed to survive for quite a few years. And we also have quite a few Genoese islands and overall just holds around the Anatolian Peninsula. As you would imagine, pretty much all of these are by the coastline, which is a standard for the Venetian and the Genoese holdouts, obviously, because, you know, you need access to sea to be able to supply those. And the main purpose of these is to give a port to your fleet. Hamidids are here as well, Teke, Alaiye, and we have the massive Karamanids, which definitely would be a contender for hegemon in the Anatolian Peninsula, as are the Eretnids for that matter. And we got quite a few new nations here. Next to Kandarids, we've got Bafra, Kubadids, Tassetinids, and Hak. I'm not sure what that one is. Now, my question here is, though, does this mean, because of the color they have, that they are vassals or subjects of the Eretnids, or what does it actually mean? I assume that's what it means, right? We also have Ahis in between Ottomans and Eretnids, and we've got quite a few little, not necessarily OPMs, but very small nations, whatever the case. Judging from the name, they are predominantly Turkic nations, and judging from the color, they're likely subjects themselves or vassals themselves. We also have the last holdout of the Ayyubids, or Hisn Khalifa as is known in EU4, still around here. And unlike EU4, it actually has like 3 provinces if I'm not mistaken there. We also have the Armenian Cilician Kingdom, last holdout here. Kilis, I'm actually not sure if this is, what is Kilis? Is this a Turkic Beylik or is it an Armenian? I'm genuinely not sure. Let me know if you guys know about this one in the comment section. I'm curious. This is the dynasty map mode. We've got the Osmanogolari, Germianogolari. Essentially, most of the Beyliks are named after their dynasty or ruling family. That's what basically gave the name of the actual Beylik. And then we have the Komnenos, of course, the arch rivals of the Palaiologos, the current Byzantine emperors, whilst the Komnenos are the old Byzantine emperors. And technically, depending on whose history version you agree with, would be more rightful emperors than the Palaiologos. I don't know. The location map mode, we have some new locations, as Pavia mentions. Some have been added, but not that many. He also mentions they've improved the connections, so they're in general more clear, especially in wasteland dense areas. All right, so basically he made it so that it's easier to go in between the wasteland. I don't know, man. I feel like I like wastelands to be more of you know, like impassable terrains to be more of a challenge and have more chokeholds and bottleneck that you can potentially use to protect or to outmaneuver your enemy, right? When you have 1,000 passings through your wastelands, what's the point of the wasteland then? Might as well just not show it then, right? These are the areas as it stands right now. We got West Anatolia, Cappadocia in the center, Cilicia, Pontus in the north, and the Armenian homeland, I guess the H stands for, or Heartland or something. The terrain map mode has been slightly adjusted actually. We've got cold arid in the central part where the plateau is, Mediterranean around the coastline, oceanic a little bit in the north, as well as some subtropical, surprisingly, with continental in the eastern parts of the Anatolian Peninsula. Now, of course, it goes hand in hand, the climate with the type of terrain. That's why plateau is pretty much identical with where we have cold arid. And then we've got hills around the continental in the north, as well as more hills and a ton of mountains all over. In fact, Anatolia doesn't really have much grasslands when you really think about it, which is surprising because it basically got conquered again and again by horsey boys, which don't necessarily perform that great in mountains, hills, and plateaus and stuff, right? I don't know. How did that happen, really? Bad management. Infighting right there. Greatest enemy of the Romans, as they say, is the Roman. Vegetation-wise, we've got a lot of forest, a lot of woods, so that's actually a lot more than before, isn't it? If I'm not mistaken. They did add a lot of forest and woods. Wow. We've got sparse mostly in the center, where we have the cold arid and the plateau, and we've got a little bit of grasslands here and there, but it is definitely a lot of forest and woods. Wow. That's gonna make for some really interesting tactical situations. I personally think that considering all the terrain situation we've got in Anatolia, all the different terrains and mountains and so on, and all of the different beyliks that we have, this is probably going to be the most fun area to play in. Because think about it. You want to unify Anatolia, right? Everyone's going to be going, of course, for the Byzantines or the Ottomans, but imagine starting off as one of these little schnappledoops here and unifying Anatolia. It's going to be a definite challenge, man, and it's going to be fun for sure too. When it comes to the resource map mode, the main thing that has been changed is not necessarily some insane new additions, but what they did is they more evenly distributed the different resources, so you have a little bit of this and that everywhere rather than having massive pockets of different resources, which would make the game a little bit more unbalanced, I guess you would say, right? So this is essentially a balance change. Now, of course, the highlight of this particular video is going to be the cultural map mode, which is why I'm leaving it for last. Alongside the cultural map mode, we have the changes to the religious map mode, illustrated right behind me. So, of course, we've got predominantly Sunni, which represents the Turks, the Turkomans, but then we also have a little bit of shade of blue in the middle of Anatolia. Why is that, you ask? Well, apparently that's because of the Mongols, which seems to be a significant amount of Mongols in 1337 map, which is very interesting. Now, as you guys probably know, so this is Tengri, by the way. Blue is the Tengri religion that the Mongols follow. Now, to point this out, in 1335, just 2 years prior to our start date, Mongol rule had collapsed completely with the fall of the Ilkhanate in Anatolia. So prior to that, technically Anatolia was under the control of the Mongols for a good 100+ years. Most of that control was the nobility and the higher aristocracy, which was not necessarily all Mongols. It was a shared endeavor between the Mongols and the Turks. I don't know what books Paradox got which told them that there was that many Mongols. I would assume this is like a good few 100,000 Mongols that we have in the central part of Anatolia. I would love to know about this more. This is really interesting to me. This is very interesting to me. I would assume there's some forum posts that definitely influenced this change a lot, and whilst I cannot say this is or this is not accurate from a historical perspective, because there's no books that actually give us a census of Anatolia, it's just us guessing from different snippets here and there. It is true there were Mongols in Anatolia, and despite the collapse from 2 years prior to the start date, there would still be these Mongols in Anatolia. I personally do not think there would be hundreds of thousands of Mongols, which is what I would assume this minority is the size of, but there would definitely be like 30,000, maybe 40,000, because usually the aristocracy, when they would move move, they would move with their whole families and with their subjects and so on. The Mongols did, at least, as well as the Turks actually did. So you would have quite a few of them, but I don't know if hundreds of thousands. But then again, I don't know how much this is supposed to show, right? So maybe this is just like 40,000, in which case that's accurate. Then we have a lot of different religions. I feel like Anatolia is just the most religiously diverse area of the world right now with the current update that we have. So we got the Miaphysites, which is predominantly the Armenians. We got some Shiites alongside the Sunnis. So the Shiites would be Turks, Turkomans, even some Mongols, I would assume, even some Armenians, different, right? Because they would have converted, people would have converted to the various religions. There definitely were Shiites and Sunnis in Anatolia at the time. That's very accurate. Although Shiites definitely would not be that many, they would still be around, right? And some Turkic Beyliks had more than others had when it came down to it. Then we have the Orthodox in the east. This signifies the Greeks that would still be in the, did I say east again? I meant the west. This would be the Greeks in the west that are the Orthodox, as well as in the north in the Trebizond area, of course, and along the coastline, which would still have a huge amount of Greeks. In the south as well, we have quite a few Orthodox Greeks along the coastline, and we have some more in the central part, which would represent the Cappadocian Greeks, I guess you could say. Then we do have more Christian denominations. We have the Nestorians. We have here Nesto, which I would assume means Nestorian, and that's in the northern parts of Iraq. And the Syrian bits, it's actually the second biggest religion in this whole area. So, and we have some more blue, which means Tengri. So there's more Mongols there apparently. Now, this being the second biggest religion tells me there's quite a lot of Nestorians here. I don't know if this is final, because they haven't confirmed if this is final or not, but this is intriguing because I don't know, because look at this, see? Some parts are green with purple and some are purple with green, which means that there's majority Nestorians in some of these areas. That is juicy. That is really, really juicy. This actually took me a lot by surprise. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I was expecting Paradox to make it very straightforward in some areas, but I'm really happy with the changes they made. And also a big shout out to everybody on the forums that has been contributing to this, right? To all this feedback. A lot of people have put a lot of effort into this, and they deserve the kudos for that, for all the research they've done. I genuinely find Anatolia, with the layout that we have right now displayed behind me, to be the most fun area of EU5 so far, and I think it's going to be an area that I'm going to be spending a lot of my hours playing. Before we switch over to the cultural makeout, let's also talk about this here. We've got majority Orthodox in the areas around Lebanon and Antioch, right? And then we have minority Orthodox in the other Syrian parts next to like Damascus and everything. Definitely there would be some, right? Because you would have old remnants of the Greek administration. To what extent though? That is another question. I personally would have thought that this entire area that I'm highlighting right now would be significantly more Sunni by this period. Significantly more than it is depicted right now. But I don't know. That's just me. I don't know. I might be wrong. And even if I'm right or wrong, one thing I have to say is I like it like this. Even though it's not maybe super historical, because end of the day, we don't really have any censuses for that. So it's all guesswork, right? No matter how many history books you read, trust me, this is all guesswork here. Nobody actually knows, because there's literally no censuses. But this makes for a really interesting region. And as we all know, a really interesting and diverse region like this means a lot more hours on the computer replaying the same game as the same nation with different outcomes. Now, to the juice of the juice, boys. Look at this map. This is the most glorious thing I've seen in a while. I'm actually in love with this. I have to say, on the one hand, that this is disgusting. This is the most border gore-ish map I've seen in a while. But on the other hand, this is also glorious, because this shows exactly how Anatolia is supposed to be shown in this particular time frame. We don't have a majority of anything anywhere, really. Like a complete majority. We have a mixture of everything. In the west, we've got a lot of Greeks mixed in with the Turks. We've got some Turkomans, which are the tribesmen still migrating around. We've got the Pontic Greeks in the northern parts of the Anatolian Peninsula. We've got Armenians all the way from the heartlands of Armenia into the Kingdom of Cilicia, the last Armenian holdout into the southeast parts of Anatolia. And considering the lack of Armenians in this particular kingdom, I would assume that Yeah, that would be a Turkic Beylik, I guess. I don't know. Maybe a Syrian kingdom. This is actually a lot of Syrian and Levantine culture, apparently. Levantine is its own culture. That is really cool. I'm glad to see that. And of course, you can see from the color here that Levantine is the predominant culture in the Levant. So that would be in Lebanon, I guess. Syriac is its own culture, and there's honestly a lot of different cultures in the Syrian area, including Armenians, Levantines, Kurds. We've got a lot of Kurds around too, although I'm not sure. Most of this area, including Hisn Khalifa or Ayyubids, is Kurdish. Remember that Salahuddin, which was the actual embodiment of the Ayyubids, right? The reconqueror of Jerusalem, he was a Kurd. Salahuddin was a Kurd, guys. I really wish we had like an actual amount of pops before I say anything here, because I see Armenian, Kurdish, Turkoman, and I see them mixed in with each other, but I don't know what the percentages are. I do have to say this is accurate though. By this particular time frame, Armenians, which would have been the dominant culture here a few hundred years prior, not now, they would have started to be split up. So you would have dominant Armenians in the heartlands, which is here, and then dominant Armenians in Cilicia, as is shown here. But then you would also have fading away amounts of Armenians in between those two areas, right? Now we have the Georgians in the northeast, we see here with the red color. Also, speaking of colors, can we change the colors? I feel so confused right now. Like the Greek and the Turkish colors almost identical, my dude. Can we make Greeks like, I don't know, some type of Byzantine color, or maybe make the Turks like red or like green or something, right? Just any other color except the same freaking color. It's wild. Did anyone not even think about that part? Because it's so hard to tell which one's Turk, which one's Greek, which one's something else here, man. Then we also have the Cappadocian Greeks in the central part here. Very, very few Cappadocian Greeks still left around. A remnants of the former predominant Greek Cappadocians in the central part of Anatolia. Oh my god. Dude, did you just see that? Look, guys, look over here. We got the long lost Anatolian Ludi culture. Is it real? Is it not? Did I just make this shit up? You're never gonna know. Okay, so somebody actually did mention about the colors. Purple for Byzantium, green for Ottomans. My man is a freaking genius. I love that. Yeah, so there might be reviews to the colors of the cultures. I'm glad to hear that. It is a republic, apparently. Ahis, which is the little Beylik in between the Ottomans and the Eridnids here. Pavia also confirms all the tags in the east are vassals of the Sutaids. So that's talking about these new nations that sprang out of the Sutaids with the revision to the map. Also confirms the Eridnids are subjects of the Jayairids. Ooh, that changes stuff. Also mentions there's going to be different branches of Shiism which have yet to be implemented, which is why right now we just have generic Shiite provinces. I love this. So he says that we call Timurlane baby Timur until he grows up. Yes, he is 1 year old in 1337. And the fact that Pavia mentions this kind of lets me think that there's going to be some funny flavor for baby Timur, as they apparently call him. Hope you guys had fun watching this. I really enjoyed this particular dev diary, and I'll see you in the next one. Love you all. Be safe.